Unfortunately, I slammed really bad the other day, so there's no skating this week. Probably not for maybe even 2 weeks, I don't know, but I figured I'd keep myself busy because I have a hard time just like sitting inside and resting at times. I need to get outside and just do things. So what I'm gonna do today is actually take this 9-inch board, trim it down to an 8.8 board, 8.75 board actually. This is something I've actually been wanting to do for quite a while. Essentially what I'm gonna show you throughout this video is like how to reshape a board or make a board smaller. Obviously you can't go and make a board bigger. Once it's cut. But I was actually given this hockey board, this 9-inch board. So people might be wondering why not just get the board that you want. You definitely can do that, but sometimes if you're gifted a board or maybe the shop doesn't have the exact size you want, this is a good way to go about customizing your board. So first I'll show you the supplies I'm gonna use, and then we're gonna jump right into it. So here's all my supplies I'm gonna be using today. I have my jigsaw, which is gonna be really, really important. Obviously you can't do it without this. Got a nice wood blade on there. I have my sanding device. You could just use a regular sander. You don't need a special sander. At least I don't think you do. There's a lot more tools you can be using. These are the essentials. And then I have the board I'm gonna be using as my stencil shape. This is an 8.75 board, and then this is the bigger board I have, which is a 9-inch hockey board. The idea is I'm going to be slimming it down to that size. So this is a really simple kit that you're going to need. I mean, you can have way more tools. There's better tools you can use, but we can get away with it with just these two tools and these two boards. So as you see, this is a 9-inch board, and what I'm going to do with this hockey board is essentially turn it into what is a puller board that is an 8.75. Obviously there are some limitations to this, like I can't really change the shape that much, or like, well, I guess I could. If I wanted to make a square tail, for example, I could do that on here, but I couldn't make much of a bigger nose, although these do have really big noses. But my point is there are some limitations on this customization that you can really do. The other thing that I can do is actually change the wheelbase. I have a wheelbase modification tool, so if I do want to bring the wheelbase in on this board, similar to how it is on the puller board, I can do that. But first thing is first, I'm going to actually take this board and use it as a stencil. There is one other thing I forgot to mention in the supplies. I do need a Sharpie so I can draw out onto the board. All right, so first thing is first, obviously you gotta take this plastic off this board right here. I've been adding all these stickers to my wheelbarrow. It's got a good collection. Obviously it's gonna be kind of hard because when you're measuring something that's this different, like it's so microscopic, it would be better to maybe even do this on a piece of paper. Basically trace this onto cardboard and then cut the cardboard and then trace it onto here. But I'm gonna do it a little lazy. Bolts need to be in the center, pretty important. Just gonna keep the nose and the tail even from the top and bottom in the board and right in the center. So I think that's gonna be the best way to keep the truck bolts in the center. I know I'm gonna readjust the truck bolts eventually. That's something I'm thinking about doing. Never done this before. It's always a learning lesson, almost every video, whether it be DIY skate spots or DIY boards. All right, there we go. If I had a much bigger board, essentially like a bigger board to start from, or like a big blank canvas, was essentially where board decks are from, like they're not cut out, it would be a lot easier, but I am going from a board. That's the whole point of this video. My point is though, ultimately, like if this was a 9-inch board going down to an 8.5, would be so much easier. It'd be a clear marker, but because we're barely shaving in a room off, it's kind of hard to see. But now I just gotta risk it. I've never done this before, so we'll see if it works out. I gotta get the jigsaw into action. This is definitely the sketchiest way that you can do this. I feel like there's probably much better ways. So really, I'm just gonna trim the edges ever so slightly. Nose and tail is getting quite a good trim, and we'll just see. I'll make sure the bolts are in the center from there. Do a little measure test. No, hope I don't just ruin this board. Luckily, this board was given to me. Shout out to my homie Matt for hooking it up. So we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna go really, really, really slow too, so I don't mess up any of my lines. Now it's gonna be the tricky part, going straight. Probably would be a lot more accurate if I had like a board jig. Like had something where you can set the holes of the hardware into, but we are freestyling the shit out of this. Well, so far I've gotten a pretty straight line. And obviously we're gonna sand this after too, so we'll use a little bit of that width when we sand it too. All right, now we're getting up to the nose here. Gonna turn it around a little, get some more of that leverage. Pretty surprised with how straight I've gotten all this so far. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty on line with everything. It's funny because I think this straight Straight lines are actually easier than the curves. I thought it was going to be the other way around. All right. Pretty happy with the results of that. You can kind of compare it to the width of the board we traced too, just to kind of see what it's looking like. See if it's online. We can still trim some off. Probably be better than to not trim enough than to trim too much. And I think the wheelbase is what's really throwing it off right now. So we have the original board reference right here. I'm just gonna kind of try to sand down some of these rough edges, and then we'll take it from there and see if anything else needs to be adjusted. All right, we're getting somewhere. I'm just gonna do the side edge, then I'll flip it over, and then I'll do the nose and tail. It's getting somewhere. We're getting that smooth edge. It's kind of rounding off into the layers here. No, my sander just went out, so that's a bummer. Probably should have just started with a cordless sander in the first place. I didn't want to go dig around to find it, but now that we got it, I can move back over to our ramp. All right, I think that's a nice one side. I'm gonna get to the other side and start getting this nose and the tail. So it is the next day. I charged our sander. I actually put some new sandpaper on our sander as well. We're going to finish the sanding job. I wasn't able to find my wheelbase modification tool. We'll see if we'll get into that, but I just want to finish the sanding today, get some grip tape. Obviously, I still can't skate right now because I'm so injured, but I just want to get this board set up. So let's finish this edge sanding. And when I'm looking at it now, I do see that the length is not that much longer than this puller board. Also, you got to take in consideration that this puller board has been skated, so it's a little shorter because the tail has so much razor tail. However, it definitely is longer, so it's one of those things you have to consider depending on what board you're going from. Since I'm not going from a blank, I can only work from the dimensions that are already there. But let's get back to our sanding mission. Well, all right, there we go. We got it all sanded down. We got the nose, the tail, the top, and the bottom edges. One thing that I was noticing is like the graphic looks like it's off. Like it looks like I cut the board like too much on one side or something and the bolts aren't center anymore. That is not the case. If you actually look at the bolts, they are dead center. I made a measurement from the edge to the bolt on both sides, so I know that the bolts are in the center. That's probably the most important thing. Just make sure that you're not skating like a lopsided board or anything like that. You don't want to be tilting over more than one way than the other. So yeah, you can tell the graphic. Like there's more room over here than there is over here, so the graphic was just not printed in the dead center. Totally fine. Maybe that was a mistake on hockey's part. I don't know. But I'm excited to set this board up. Obviously, I can't skate right now. I probably have another week of healing. My body's just super sore. My hand is sore. Still kind of a balloon. But yeah, our next step is going to be getting some grip tape on this bad boy. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find my wheelbase modifier, so I will get some measurements while we set this up. All right, so I picked up some Mob grip tape from the local skate shop. But before I put the grip tape on this board, I actually want to seal off some of these edges because the wood is very raw. I cut it. We want to add some clear lacquer. Essentially what that's going to do is just allow it to sort of have a protective layer, so when it does get wet, you get that swamp hand from just grabbing your board over and over, things like that. Just seals it off essentially. And before we even do that, actually I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to put some wheel wells on this board. So I've made videos about how to do this before. I won't go into detail. Essentially I'm just going to put my truck on here right here. I'm going to loosen up my trucks a lot, kind of bend them down, kind of get a marker of where I want to put our wheel wells. I'm going to use my Dremel to kind of cut out some areas for our wheels to go. Essentially, this allows you to avoid wheel bite while you have big wheels without riser pads. Now we got our wheel wells on there, so now I'm just gonna do a clear coat of lacquer on our wheel wells, and then on the side of our board, Limber Louie is joining the DIY session. Oh hey, Limber Louie. Hey there. Yes, my wife is definitely playing with a puppet. That's happening. So I don't want to do a whole lot. I'm just gonna do a little bit because I don't want it to, you know, go all over the board. Just trying to seal those edges. Literally that much. That might even been too much. Nothing too crazy. Just sealing things off. Kind of just want to get some of those dry marks, get them wet. All right, there we go. Got all of our sealant on there. We got our wheel wells on there. Shaved down the deck. Now before we put the grip tape on and like set this bad boy up, I am just gonna let it dry. So we'll give it a little bit of dry time and then we'll come back and set this bad boy up. All right, give it like a solid hour to rest and set. It's not tacky anymore. Essentially, that's what you want. Everything's like sitting in there. We got a nice coat on there. We're not gonna sand it down anymore. Now it's grip tape time. So I ended up getting a sheet of mob grip. They didn't have any of the pepper grip, which I love. What trucks I'm gonna be putting on there are these Ace 66s. They're a hollow kingpin and a hollow hanger. I've been skating them quite a bit. And then I have these Spitfire 93As. Made a video about this formula. It's really good. So this is kind of like more my ditch big board. I do switch out my wheels. Like when I want to skate a big bowl or big ski park, I end up putting on the 99 or the 101s because these 93As are pretty slow once it comes to like big smooth concrete bowls. However, they're really good for the ditch. So now it's just a matter of gripping this bad boy up. There you have it. The board is all set up, ready to go, ready to skate. You definitely put some rails on it. It is definitely looking like a 875. That's what it is now. There's definitely some imperfections in it. Skate with my flip-flops on. But it actually looks pretty good. Excited to try it and just see how it skates. This really cool curve spot that Kellen James got going recently because he owns a store called Arts and Recs down here, Rad Skate Shop. Check it out if you're in San Diego. But look at this thing. It's got some fresh wax, some lacquer on it. You do have to ollie up a curve to get to it. One of those things where like, obviously ollieing up to me makes it even cooler, but depends on the trick you're doing. Like if you're gonna use the sign to get up here, you should probably do like a little bit of a harder trick. And the other thing I was thinking, like maybe the sign will just be a good way to get used to the spot and then take the sign away once you're like trying to film it. But yeah, let's get some putter rounds and see how this thing slides and grinds. I'm pretty curious. I might use a sign. I don't know. I also brought my softies with me. Softies and 93 Spitfires because this ground is a little rough. And there are some other spots around here. So today we're just kind of tinkering around, getting it out of the skate park because I've been going to the skate park too much lately. And I really haven't been skating spots at all since my injury. So yeah, excited to start here today, this morning, first spot.